going on, everybody? Hope you're all having a fantastic day. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as you guys probably already know, the beta has been down for at least the past couple of days now, and the Battlefield 6 beta will be returning on Thursday, but for the time being, I wanted to put out a handful of videos. Of course, I am going to be having my critique/criticism video, probably later this afternoon at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, going over all the things that I think are, wrong, busted. If it doesn't go this evening, it'll be tomorrow morning. But for the time being, until that video pops on up, I wanted to discuss something that I think is extremely important and crucial to, push out there to the public, and I think it should be recognized by almost everybody, and that is the performance of Battlefield 6. I actually saw a post over on Reddit by an individual that goes by the name of Anita6117 saying, "Can devs get a praise for optimization? I get stable 30 FPS on 1080p low settings with 13-year-old low-end GPU, a GTX 660 Ti. Holy cow, man. That is absolutely absurd that this individual is even able to function within Battlefield 6. But I do agree with this statement. I think the developers deserve a bit of recognition when it comes to how they optimized Battlefield 6. Guys, it is a trend with Battlefield to release games that are bugged to death. That is just littered with tons of problems. Performance is absolutely awful, so on and so forth. And I will say, as you can see right here from another comment, I'm assuming, Alex, that said, "It's stable, yes, but it's a CPU-heavy game. I have a 4070 Super, and it barely reaches 50 to 60% GPU usage because my Ryzen 5600 often spikes to 90% usage. This is a true statement. It's a very CPU-heavy game. Still tons of fun. And when I'm recording and, trying to stream at the same time, it becomes a bit rough. You guys don't really see it in the footage. As you can see, the footage is pretty smooth. But on my end, the game gets very delayed, and I'm almost like 3 seconds behind all the opponents. So when I pop off in some of this footage, I'm not trying to, pat myself on the back here, but truthfully, it's pretty lucky sometimes because I am very behind a lot of the competition. It takes, it takes a little bit of a struggle sometimes. But when I'm not recording and streaming and I'm just simply playing the game, I mean, my God, this is the best performance I've seen in a Battlefield game in ages, despite it being a CPU-heavy game. And again, the devs can go ahead and optimize this as time goes on. But right here, right now, in the current moment, compared to all the previous Battlefield experiences, as I was saying, Battlefield is known for being a buggy game at launch. Nobody expects it to be clean anymore, which is sad. And I've always stated this in previous videos, that shouldn't be the standard, right? We shouldn't be accepting that EA DICE can release half-baked games that are busted at launch every year, and it's accepted because it's just the normal flow of things. At some point in time, they should have higher standards for themselves when it comes to releasing Battlefield games. But that is indeed how it's always been. Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, Battlefield Hardline, Battlefield 1, Battlefield 5, Battlefield 2042, we all know how that one went. All of these games had some pretty bumpy launches, including very bumpy betas. It's never, a walk in the park. But when I play Battlefield 6, I didn't witness any of that. And I went into playing Battlefield 6 with that mentality. I really did. I wasn't going to critique it off of these issues. I wanted to see if the core game itself was worth it. Because, as I already stated, it's pretty typical for this stuff to happen. But if the foundation is solid, then we can work past it, the devs can optimize it, and obviously will be good in the end because the foundation was solid compared to something like 2042, where the foundation was always garbage. So even when they do go ahead and optimize it, we're left with a garbage game at the end. But when I went into it, I was amazed. Not only is the foundation extremely good, but I could play it. I could run it. I'm not stuttering. I'm not lagging. Of course, as I stated, when I'm recording and stuff, when I'm really pushing my PC to the max, yeah, it's some issues. But when I'm just sitting there playing it, like every person out there, let's be honest, who's a content creator, right? Over half the people, if not all the people who are going to play Battlefield are your everyday people. Someone who's coming home from work and wants to hop on a little bit, whether they're on their console or PC. Someone who gets back from class and wants to hop on a little bit. Doesn't matter. Whatever you're doing with your busy schedule, when you get home and you want to relax, you want a game that performs nicely. And it does. It's smooth as butter. And the best part about this whole situation right now is that the whole beta has been stuffed, and I mean stuffed to the brim, with small maps. So we're on an old build of the game that isn't, basically completely optimized, which still runs very solid. So we'll see how the game plays when we're in the next version of the build. And as I stated, we're on all small, condensed maps, a crap ton of players with a crap ton of explosions and a crap ton of stuff going on and buildings shattering everywhere and vehicles exploding everywhere. This is as hard to run up a game as possible. They made sure of that. And it works perfect. If these maps can work the way that they are, then the big maps are going to be absolutely no problem. When there's a bunch of, more open space in between combat and maybe some less explosions and less, combat zones that are packed to the brim with a bunch of people, when we can get maps like that, I'm not even worried. Not even in the slightest. Again, if these maps are running this great, then those maps are going to run outstanding. And I do want to mention this too, ladies and gentlemen, because I think this is one of the biggest reasons why this game is in such a good spot, and it should be inspiration to every other team out there when it comes to putting together a game. And it sucks. I hate saying this because I know people are still on last gen, but I think the reason this game is performing so nicely is the fact that they don't got to worry about last gen. They don't have to worry about, making sure this game functions for the last generation of consoles that are still completely outdated. All the features within this game could be hyper-prioritized towards PC players and next-generation consoles. And because of that, it allows them to optimize the living crap out of this game. And also, I'll be honest, I think that's one of the reasons why this game feels so next-gen. There's been so many games that are considered next-gen that are still on last-gen consoles that you could tell we're just not there yet when it comes to that quality. We just simply aren't. But with Battlefield 6, it feels it in every way, shape, and form between gunplay, movement, fluidity, destruction, visual, everything. It blows me away. And that would not be obtainable, in my opinion, of course. These are all opinions, keep in mind. But that would not be obtainable if they had to worry about last generation consoles. I understand. I know it's a crappy thing to say, and let's be real here, there's a ton of people who are playing on last gen. It's one of the main reasons why companies like Activision are still making their games for last generation consoles, because there's no reason to phase them away. That's a lot of money you're missing out on there. Literally, I think it's half the population of gamers, maybe even a little over half, play on last generation still. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of potential money that you're missing out on. But yes, you might be missing out on some money, but the quality of the game that you are producing is going to be so much better when the developers can hyper-prioritize what the heck they need to go ahead and optimize and stop trying to find little shortcuts to allow last-generation hardware to be able to run a game that they're trying to be extremely extra with when it comes to overall performance. Ladies and gentlemen, again, the whole point of this video is to just put a huge spotlight on just the optimization of Battlefield 6 and to say thank you. Although we shouldn't be saying thank you. If I'm going to be real, we shouldn't be saying thank you whatsoever, because this should be expected. We should have been striving to put out a Battlefield game that actually performs and functions and is optimized at launch. We should have been thriving for this years and years and years and years ago. But still, I'm going to say it because the new team at DICE and all the new heads that are coming on through and everybody that's returning, veterans from, DICE that worked back in the day on some of the OG GOATs like Battlefield 4, for example. All these people coming back together and really trying to push is what has gotten us to this point. And seriously, thank you so much, because it's outstanding to finally play a game, especially in the AAA space where games usually drop. Let me rewind a second. The live service era of gaming. Games typically drop in pretty bad states. It is what it is. Of course, I like to support a lot of them, and I would love to see a lot of these games thrive and continue on. But it's not a shocker to anybody when a game drops and there's 1,000 bugs, compared to back in the day where you bought a full product for $60 and the game either functioned or it didn't function. And, if it didn't function and it had some bugs, they might have been some quirky bugs, some funny bugs. But 9 times out of 10, they weren't going to get polished off. They weren't going to get resolved. What you bought is what you got. But now with live service, it's changed the mentality of a lot of these development teams of, put out product now, work on it later, over time. And that is it doesn't work in my personal opinion. And it's great to see that we finally have a team taking a stand and making sure this game works functionally before pumping it out the door. I was worried initially that EA was rushing this game. The second I heard that, GTA 6 is getting pushed back and EA is trying to, spot out the holiday season, I'm like, crap. They saw GTA 6 get pushed. They saw their window. They don't care what the outcome is going to be. They're pushing it out the door, and they're going to make sure that, they get some money for this. But they didn't. They genuinely did not. They're aiming for a holiday window because the devs are confident that this game is in a solid point. And that's what we like to see. So, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully your guys' experience was good with the overall beta. Hopefully, the performance was nice. Let me know down in the comment section what it was like. Because for me personally, everybody that I was playing with and talking to, their game ran amazing. But I want to know what the overall community has to say as well. And I also want to know if you guys think this game is ready to be shipped or if it needs to be held back a bit. But, ladies and gentlemen, as always, if you enjoyed today's video, leave a like. If you hate it, leave a dislike. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell. I post here daily at 8 morning Eastern Time. And sometimes we even double upload at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Like I said, I might have my Battlefield 6 critique video of all the things that I want to see resolved coming out later this afternoon. Or I might wait an extra day and collect some more information. It really depends. But, of course, if you guys want to stay up to date on all this information, all these games between COD, Battlefield, Splitgate 2, Arc Raiders, any other FPS or third-person games that might spark my interest, by all means, subscribe and hit that bell. And last but not least, I do stream Monday through Saturday over on Twitch, starting between 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, if you guys are interested, go link that channel down in the description of this video. As always, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you all next one. Peace out.